crafty friends, welcome back to my channel. So today I have a bit of a different project, and I'm sure you guys are thinking Tashiana needs another project like she needs a hole in her head, and you guys might be correct, but this is something that I was already doing, just not formally. I was actually doing this in my my daily journal, which is recording my crafty endeavors. And I was super inspired by Krystal Becker. I will link her Instagram and her YouTube channel in the description, and Jennie Ray. They've been doing a sort of creativity journal where they've been documenting what they've been making and their feelings about it and their creative journey. And I thought that was such a good idea. And like I said, I've been doing this kind of informally, and I already had some memory planner templates that I wasn't using, and I already had an 8.5 by 11 album. And again, I needed another project, like I needed a hole in my head, but I could not resist the opportunity to get this on pages in an album where I could flip through and see my creative journey, see my creative progress, see how things, what I'm making, see how it's changed. I mean, I could easily like scroll through Instagram if I wanted to do it, but to have words connected to these photos, you guys know I'm all about the words. So I'm really excited for this project. So I'm going all the way back to the beginning. This is week 1 of 2020. And I happen to have a lot left of my Felicity Jane Reagan kit, which was the January kit for 2019. So I thought it'd be really fun to use that. So I went in. This is Andrea, RetroHipMama. This is her planner template, and I'm using hers versus Shannon's because her boxes are closer to square. They're a little bit shorter than Shannon's templates, and my crafty photos tend to be square anyway. So what I did was I took her template, modified it a tiny bit so that my photos are square and not rectangles, and then I went in and just did my journaling on random shapes. And compared to my normal memory planning videos, I am not sticking to the grid for this one. I'm literally going to be scrapbooking on this page. So things are going to be in the grid, out the grid. I'm using the grid as a template, but I'm not sticking to it as rigidly as I do with my weekly memory keeping pages. The other thing I did to prepare was I went into my Reagan paper stash and I cut down a bunch of papers so they are the size of the boxes. I'm going to do some rips, some paper layering. It's literally going to be a scrapbook on a memory planning page. So I'm really excited to get started. I'm really excited to get this into an album. I have week 1 printed already, and I might just print week 2 and get it done, and we'll see how it goes. To help me orient, I did go back to my Instagram to see what days I was sharing things, just to help me orient myself and to kind of match the days of the week. And some of my captions are taken from Instagram, and some are captions that I rewrote based on how I was feeling. So I'm going to stop talking right now. I'm going to put you on fast forward, and I'm going to get to work. All right, crafty people. So let's switch gears and let's get to the actual meat and potatoes of this process. I had so much fun with doing this style of memory planning. I thought I knew what memory planning was, and I thought I loved the process before, but I gotta tell you, after doing this kind of memory planning, which is kind of freeform and less rules, not that there are any rules to memory planning to begin with, but when I was doing it for my weekly memory keeping, I was very much sticking to the grids. Like I was printing cards that fit the grids, and printing, even if my cards were like landscape cards, they still fit the grid. And this time around, I was like, Tasha, you could use the grid or you could not use the grid. And you see, in some places I use the grid, in other places I treat the grid like a loose suggestion. So I started with stamping, and this is the Jane stamp from Ellie Studio. As always, whatever products I can find, I will link in the description box. I'm not sure if this is still on sale at the shop, but if it is, I will, happily link it in the description box. But I love the Ellie Studio Jane stamp set. It is a large size, and the alphabet and the letters come with the filled in version and then the outlines. The alphabets, it's a separate pack, but with the numbers, you get the number sheet with the fill in and the outlines on the same stamp set, and then you get a bunch of other stuff like question marks and brackets and parentheses. It is such a fun stamp set to use. So I'm stamping my numbers in Tattered Rose, which is a very, very light pink, and Chipped Sapphire, which is more of a navy color. I chose to use navy versus black because the Reagan collection has this navy color and that pink. This navy is not the exact navy that's in the Reagan collection, but I thought it was close enough that it would work. And then I pulled out one of my favorite. I think you guys are probably sick of seeing this stamp set, but I love it so much. It is such a versatile stamp set, and I'm getting so much use out of it, you guys. I love it so much. This is the Printer's Block stamp set from Kerry Bradford Studio, and this is no longer available. I do not know if Kerry will ever do a restock. I know she has like high demand for her 6x8 stamps, but they sell out super fast. I know she's doing a restock of thick and thin, you guys. So if that was something that you wanted, I know I used it in the process video that went up on Sunday. So if that's something that you wanted, you can pre-order thick and thin right now. Not using it in this video, but just letting you know because that stamp set is so good. So now I have my numbers and my days of the week stamped across the top. So I just went with the large number and then the thinner day of the week. And part of the reason I love this template versus Shannon's template is how much space you have at the top for stamping. So Shannon's template gives you a bigger space for photos because her grid is a lot longer than Andrea's, but Andrea's template gives you lots of space at the top for stamping. So all those large numbers and all those large alphas that I couldn't use on Shannon's pages, I am 100% using them here, which is why I pulled out my Jane stamp. Now I'm just arranging my my journaling with my photos. So for this particular memory planning style, I am going to attempt to follow the days because I do want to document the days that I shared things. So I had my phone out to double check my Instagram to make sure that the days that I was sharing on Instagram matched up with the days where the photos were going. And then I have all those pattern papers that I showed you that I cut from the Reagan papers in advance. These are cut 2.5 by 1 7/8 inch. I could have used the template, but it was just easier for me to measure the boxes and then cut the pattern papers down to size. It took me like no time to cut a bunch of papers, and I just wanted to have a variety so I could go ahead and layer them and mix and match. So you see, for each photo, I ripped up like the edges of the paper. It's my favorite thing to do is just add ripped paper edges. So I ripped one edge. Some photos I ripped two edges, and I'm just multi-matting my my images. And the photos, I actually am trying something new this time around. My friend Tracy Reed uses glossy sticker paper for her photos in her memory planning pages, and I finally got my hands on it, and so I'm giving it a try in this layout just because photo paper is expensive, you guys, and this glossy sticker paper is not as expensive. It was like 100 sheets for like $15 or something like that. And since I'm printing my photos really small, like it's not that important to me that they be top notch. Like these, don't get me wrong, this prints really well. It is pretty good quality. It's not like my Epson Ultra Premier photo paper quality, but this prints really nicely, and it's relatively thin, so it's not as bulky as the photo paper that I'm used to using, which is great because this is going to get thick really fast. Also, I'm talking about how my photo paper is not as bulky, and wait till you see what I put on this page, because this page ends up being so dimensional by the time it ends up going in the album. It is nuts. So again, I am just working on trying to balance out the spread. I left all of this footage in, which I normally don't do, but because I'm working outside of the grid, I kind of wanted you to see what my thought process was for balancing the spread. So I just mixed and matched the papers, mixed and matched the photos, and then I wanted my text. I didn't want my text to be like in a solid brick across the middle of the page. So I'm trying to vary where I put my text with where I put my photos, just to balance out the page and to make sure that everything looks interesting. Also, some of my journaling is longer than others because I have a lot to say about some projects and not as much to say about other projects, which is the nature of the beast. There are some things that I am very invested in, like the photo on the 30th was my last December daily post. So I did have a fair amount to say about, finishing December daily on time, about sharing it with you guys this whole the whole month of December. So I had a fair amount to say about that. The photo in the middle is about my one little word. It's that talisman that I had shared on Instagram. And then the photo on the 1st of January was talking about trying to redo Project Life. And I actually realized after I did this that one of the photos in this week actually doesn't belong to this week. I'm not sure how I did that, how I mixed that up, but one of the photos on this spread is something that I shared the following week. But at this point, I'm playing it fast and loose with the dates anyway. I try to stick to it, but it's not the end of the world to me if it doesn't match up like perfectly. I was just trying to get as close to it as possible. And so now I'm just using some tape and I'm sticking it down. Now, I love the idea of this creativity journal. I said in my intro that I borrowed the idea from Krystal, Becker, and from Jennie Ray, and I will be sure to link them in the description box so you can follow them on Instagram. Also, Krystal Becker has a YouTube channel, and she's fabulous. So if you don't subscribe to her, you should. She's wonderful making videos, and I love her style, and I love listening to her. But the idea of this creativity journal just feels so good. Like, I love being able to just take a look at everything I made that week, and I'm hoping that, halfway through the year, or even in the middle of the year, even in like the middle of like the next month or so, if I hit like a creative rut, it's so nice to like go back and see what you've made and to just be able to read what you were thinking while you were making it. For me, scrapbooking is very much an act of self-care. It is a radical act of self-care. And so to be able to have this all in front of me where I can just look at it, if I ever need inspiration, I don't mind scrap lifting myself. I know that some people don't, like, that's not a thing for them. I don't mind scrap lifting myself. It's my designs. And if I want to make it over and over with different collections and different photos, then I don't know, I think it's okay in my book. So if I ever just want to go for inspiration, if I'm like stuck in a rut, I don't know what to do, I think it'd be pretty cool to just go back to something I made a few weeks ago that I loved and then just be able to do that again, or even see if that sparks a different direction that I could take it in. I'm obsessed with this format. So I opened the die cut pack, also from Reagan. I had a few of my Felicity Jane collections still intact, and most of them I had already broken down, but the ones that I still had the most of, I left intact. So I still had a ton of stuff from Reagan, which is why I was able to do this for this spread. And so I'm just trying on different things. So I put that frame over the photo in the bottom left side of the right page. I'm staring at it. I'm like, where is that frame? And then I add that big floral. I took a journaling card. I'm not sure which collection that was from, but it says create your happy, and it was a banner, and I thought it'd be a perfect way to fill up empty space. And now I am just embellishing. And this is where it becomes, for me, more a scrapbooking page than like a strict memory plan or grid like it was for me before with my other pages, because I am literally just embellishing and treating this like a layout. I am adding bits and pieces wherever I want. I'm adding things that I think balance, things flow. I'm adding hearts. I'm adding flowers. All the things that make me happy on a traditional scrapbook page, I'm literally putting it on this grid. I add that tag between days 30 and day 1. And now I'm figuring out if I want to stamp a label. So I just go ahead and stamp that label with the sentiment. I probably should tell you what the sentiment says. I'll catch up in a second. But I'm using Ranger archival ink with the Felicity Jane die cuts because they're a little slippery. I find that like archival ink or StazOn are the best inks for stamping on the labels. So if you're stamping on the FJ labels and you're wondering why things are slipping around, try archival ink or StazOn. It works much better. I used to use VersaFine and I was struggling. I switched my ink and it worked so well. So the thing I stamped on it says take the next step. That's what it was. And I stamped it right between my December daily and my project life, kind of just transitioning to the next big project. I have a lot of memory keeping that is ongoing. I'm always making something, but then there are a few projects that I feel like have a beginning, a middle, and an end. December daily is one of those projects that it just finishes. Like when December is over, you're done documenting it, it finishes. Project life is another one of those projects that has a beginning, middle, and end. You're documenting a year, and when the year is over, hopefully you wrap up your album. So it feels like I'm transitioning from one big project to the other, whereas I have a bunch of ongoing projects like my selfie album and my album with my husband and my album with my cats. Those are all ongoing stories where I'm constantly just adding bits and pieces to it. So here I'm just stacking some labels. I stacked a brown bronzy label that said goals over top a gray label. I'm adding some of those vellum hearts. So those hearts were really pretty. It was like a cardstock heart and had vellum stitched to it. And so you could kind of like pop it up for dimension. Mine are super old and are out of the packaging. So I had to add some glue to stick it down. And then here is where dimension goes bananas because I start sticking down these velvet bows, and I had to use Redline tape. Redline tape is the strongest adhesive I own, and I find that it works really well for sticking down fabric. So I had to use Redline tape to stick down those bows to the layout, and then I put one down, and then I was like, you know what? This layout needs more bows. And so I put that like burgundy color one down, and then I put down a white one, and eventually I'm going to put down a pink one, because you know how I am about things being in groups of 3. I like literally stared at it with just the 2 bows, and I was like, this cannot stand, and I had to add a 3rd bow. That's just me with my rule of thirds and all the other shenanigans I come up with. So now I'm working on my sidebar. So I went ahead and measured the size of the sidebar and then cut down a little bit more pattern paper. And I'm going to do some stamping. So this stamp, unfortunately, is out of stock. I did check. This is the Lexington stamp by Kelly Perky. I like the alphabet because it is an open alpha, like it's not filled in. It's kind of an outline. I feel like it feels really like free and dainty because it's an outline versus a filled in stamp set. So I just stamp out the word 1 to signify that this is week 1. And then I take the chipboard stickers from the Reagan collection. You guys, I had so much from this. I think I only made 2 layouts with Reagan when I got it. And then I put it in my, like I have an organizer just full of Felicity Jane stuff. And I think I made 2 layouts with Reagan when I got it. And then I put it away and never went back to it. So kind of serendipitous, because then I had a ton of it to make this, this spread. So I'm just going ahead and getting the letters that spell out week. And then my title will be week 1. I don't do any other embellishing to the sidebar besides spelling out week 1 and calling it good. I like the mix of the stamps with the stickers, and the stickers are black and white, so I thought it works perfectly with just stamping in VersaFine. So for this particular stamp, I think VersaFine is the best ink choice, just because VersaFine works really well with details. And I'm stamping it on cardstock, so it all worked out really well. And now I'm working on my top sidebar because there's empty space everywhere, and the empty space is making me nuts. So I'm just filling in that empty space. I grab a bunch of the papers that I had cut up. I think I ended up, even after this layout and all the papers that I layered, I think I still had, I think like six of those 2.5 by 1 7/8 squares to use on a future project. I don't mind mixing and matching collections. I just figured it'd be fun to use just Reagan on this. So I create this this paper cluster where I just ripped up a bunch of papers, layered them on top of each other with some glue in my fine line bottle, and then I'm adding embellishments. So first I stick that down. I like having a little cluster in the top left corner of the spread. I think it looks really cool because it's empty space and now it's filled up. I add an ampersand. I go ahead and add another one of these velvet bows because I just cannot help myself. So there you see I'm using the red line tape. It is the best adhesive. If you have rubber embellishments and you struggle with sticking rubber embellishments down on the page, red line tape is amazing. And then I grab another one of those layered hearts because I realize I have 2 layered hearts on the spread. And you know how I am about groups of 3. I needed a 3rd one. So this one is navy. So I ended up with a black gingham plaid one, a pink one, and I'm just adding that navy one to the top corner. And then I work on finishing the spread. So I think what I do next is add some stuff to the top. Yeah, that's what it was. So I couldn't figure out how I wanted to finish off this spread. I first tried some washi, which I took out the video because the washi was horrible. It was this like coral pink and navy stripes, and in theory it should have worked, but when I put it on the paper, it didn't work at all. It was frightening how bad it was. So I ended up taking it off, and then I ended up ripping the paper, so I had to put something there because then I was like, well, now I can't leave it. It's ripped and it's naked and it's ugly. So I ended up taking the scallop edge off of some solid the pattern paper. So the Felicity Jane kits always come with, I think, 2 or 3 sheets of solid papers, and they have that like fun scalloped trim. So I cut that edge off and I like ripped it a little bit just to repeat that rough texture, and then I layered it on the left side of my spread. And then because I did it on the left side, I kind of had to do it on the right side. I didn't have as much paper to do it on the right side, so I just grabbed a tiny little scrap that I had left. I stuck that down on the right side, and then I ended up adding a strip of heart paper to the right side because I didn't have any more of that scalloped, but it wasn't as important to me that it be the same pattern as much as I just have another paper on that side. And that If I'm not mistaken, that completes the spread, you guys. So I hope you enjoyed watching. I hope you enjoyed this new project I have. I love how this came out so much. It feels so free and so organic, and it's just fun to like play with products that you have in your stash. I think that's going to be the best part of this new project, is I'm going to be stash busting in ways that I never stash busted before, because I'm literally just grabbing things that I have lying around and sticking it down on the page and documenting my creative journey. So please give me a like, comment, and subscribe if you're so inclined, and I will see you around on the next video. Bye!